Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight to talk about the Dodds Lake Area Community Recreation Plan. My name is Amanda Heisler, and I'm a planning and engagement consultant with Stantec Consulting. Stantec was hired by the town of Innisfil to complete the recreation plan, so I'm going to be hosting this event tonight with several of my coworkers and some staff from the town of Innisfil, who I will introduce in a moment. As a matter of housekeeping, we know that online tools can be challenging, and with so many different tools out there, it can be confusing to try and figure out how each one of them works. Understanding that not everyone may be able to join us tonight, or our connections unfortunately may drop off. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but I'd just like to mention that we are recording this event and it will be posted onto the engagement website for viewing later. To my understanding, what's going to be recorded is just the presentation screen. So I believe that will be all. Hopefully we don't have any technical issues, but we're going to try and keep on schedule and jump into the meeting and start right now. As I just mentioned, everyone is now on mute, and I'll ask that everyone remain on mute until the question and answer portion near the end of the meeting. That way, if anyone's animals or other distractions come up, we can keep going, and hopefully my animal does not come up either. We'll see how it goes. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide. Great. At Stantec, we always start our meetings with a safety moment. And this likely goes without saying, but we're having this virtual meeting tonight because we want to make sure that we're all being very safe as possible to limit the spread of COVID-19. So to limit this spread and keep each other safe, we just like to remind everyone to practice physical distancing, self-isolate if you're feeling sick, wash your hands frequently, cover your coughs and sneezes, avoid touching your face, limit your travel wherever possible. And finally, I'll just add, try and remember that everyone's going through a really tough time right now, and we just need to be really kind to ourselves and to other people as well. I don't want to go on too much about what a unique time this is, but over 10 years of hosting many different types of public engagement activities in person, this is the first one where all of the engagement for a project is being done online. As I'm sure everyone can relate to, shifting activities online is quite exciting, but takes a bit of getting used to. We have worked closely with the town to design the Dodds Lake engagement process to be as interactive as possible while still being online. And I'm quite excited about the technology we've chosen to use. Tonight, we're able to reach you all in the comfort of your home, and hopefully everything goes as planned. But like I said, it may not. So I would just ask that everyone hang in there with us if we encounter any snags. I promise that we'll do our best to keep everything moving and be respectful of your time by keeping things on time and moving forward. Here is the agenda for tonight's meeting. We're going to start with an introduction to the project, quickly go over the process and timeline, review some background information, discuss past engagement ideas, and then talk a bit about what we're hearing through the engagement process so far. After that, we will review the next steps and answer some of your questions. So this is generally an overview of what you've seen on the engagement website, just with a bit of a more interactive touch, and then giving us that opportunity to chat at the end. Regarding how we're going to ask questions during the meeting, we'll be doing that at the end. So as you think of the question, please feel free to type it into the chat box of the Microsoft Teams meeting, and we will read and answer them at the end. Or during the Q&A portion, you can click on the raise your hand button, which is at the bottom of your screen if you're on a desktop computer, and we'll recognize you by name and then ask you to unmute and give you the floor. We've also received some questions via email, so I'll be reading those and then we'll be addressing each one of those. Because we're anticipating quite a few attendees, I think we're at 12 right now, we'll just do our best to be patient and keep things organized by using this format instead of having more open discussions. Although if we come to the end and we're into a topic, it's fine, and we'll just get everyone to chat as they'd like, and I'll be taking notes during that. And then once we move on to the next question, maybe we'll ask everyone to remute and we'll move on to the next question. I'm also going to run through that process again once we get to the Q&A portion of the presentation, just as a reminder, or to catch anyone who might have joined us a little bit late. Okay, so let's get into it. We have 5 project team members on the meeting tonight, 3 from Stantec and 2 from the town of Innisfil. So I'm going to allow each one of them a quick opportunity to introduce themselves to you. For the people I'm talking about right now, while introducing yourself, please make sure you first unmute yourself, like I forgot to do, and then speak for just a couple of moments so your video can trigger at the bottom of the screen for everyone to see you. So I'll start. As I said, I'm Amanda Heisler. I work with Stantec. My role in this project is primarily engagement and also planning. And let's start with the town staff. So Megan, could you unmute and introduce yourself?
Okay, so my name is Megan Jenkins. I'm the manager of planning with the town of Innisfil. And so I'm involved in most of the land development projects, as well as future planning and capital projects. I'm the lead contact with the town for this project, and I look forward to hearing everyone's comments tonight.
Awesome. Okay, Kane, do you want to go next?
Yeah, for sure. Hey everybody, Kane Williams, Recreation Program Coordinator for the town. Just jumping on because I want to see some awesome recreation opportunities happen around the lake, but they have to be the right ones. So looking forward to hearing from everybody tonight, and thanks for being here.
Okay, we're going to go over to Gail.
Hi everybody, my name is Gail Weems and I'm with Stantec. My role on this project is to coordinate with the town and steer the overall concept design once we evaluate feedback gathered during this engagement portion.
Great, and Gord, you will go next.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending on this really nice evening. My name is Gordon Lau with Stantec Consulting. I am an urban planner. My primary focus on this project will really be items related to the spatial requirements of it. So how much space do certain amenities require, where those things may be located, and where some of those priorities of these amenities and how they kind of sort out over time as the town prepares for the capital planning of it. For myself, it's really about understanding that existing ownership, both in terms of the property lines, the properties of that many of you guys own, and then also providing the team that assistance in developing this long-term plan, this conceptual plan in terms of the recreational opportunities surrounding the pond.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for introducing yourselves. And Megan, we're going to turn it over to you to go over the purpose of the plan. So unmute as well. Great.
You bet. So I think as on the screen really sums it up. This plan is really to create a vision for the lake and then map out a path to make that a reality. Dodd's Lake has evolved a lot over time, as has a lot of the surrounding development and the community. This plan is really intended to recognize the value of Dodd's Lake as an asset, and that we want to make the best use of it, and allow the town to make a plan for how they should be investing and managing and planning in and around the lake, so that we can make a proper plan moving forward and yeah, really make the most of this opportunity.
All right, Gord's going to take over for a little bit and take us through planning considerations. Gord, when you want the slide changed, please let me know.
Perfect. I think coming into this project, there wasn't necessarily a very strict, set of directions for us. It was really about telling us like Megan had just talked about what the potential of this recreation area is. It's about developing that plan that helps us understand from the planning perspective, capital planning perspective, that really that long-term direction. I think for us, I would say the only direction that we were, specifically given was to recognize Dodd's Lake as what we will identify as a regional recreational opportunity. It's something that has features and amenities and activities that bring the whole town to it. Compared to something that is primarily meant for maybe just the neighborhood or for smaller areas. So I think that was the one thing that we've continued to really take to heart as we work through some of these things, and understanding, even in terms of the engagement, what people are looking for, what people want, and making sure that does it fit with that regional attribute of it. In terms of the planning considerations, one of those things about Dodd's Lake is that it's established. There's a lot of homes surrounding it. There's a lot of people that live around it. There's many activities and activities that are already used in this area. So for us, it's both understanding the technical nature of it. It's understanding the existing conditions of it. And then lastly, it's also understanding the regulatory aspects of it. So number one, anytime we're dealing with a lake, a body of water, safety is definitely one of our primary concerns. So for us, it's understanding both in terms of safety for the community, and then also maintenance or liabilities and risk for the town itself. Number two consideration is really about trying to focus on what the community is looking for in terms of those things for enjoyment, those things for amenities. What do you guys want to see from this site itself? Going back to the water itself, and also just being a very natural area, there are environmental considerations, there's natural spaces considerations, there's water quality considerations. With the body of water itself, again, like I mentioned, there are certain things that are related to the legislation, the policies, and the regulations of it. And those things, to some regards, are provincial and even federal regulations. So for us, it's really about understanding what those regulations are, understanding how the roles and, I guess, responsibility of the town in enforcing those policies and requirements and regulations. Another planning consideration, again, probably one of the biggest one, is really the existing conditions. Understanding both the on-site and the off-site consideration. So for me, on-site would be really just the lake itself and those people directly adjacent to it. Off-site would be things like the traffic patterns, things like the sidewalk connectivities of the areas around. Property lines is something that we've had to consider. Land ownership in terms of which parcels of land are owned by who and where those property lines abut to. And then Lori, and just for yourself, approved plans. That's also something that we have to consider, both the specific plans that have been already approved, such as an area structure plan or an outline plan. But then there's also bigger ones, things like the recreational plan, trails plan, and then even to some degree regards the municipal development plan from the community. All of these things do have to be in line and kind of fit in with each other. One that we did mention is that because of the adjacent property owners, there is also that understanding of security and existing lifestyle. People have lived around this lake for a long time. People purchased and bought and as part of this Dodd's Lake for a certain reason. And this plan isn't takes that into consideration. Is that a plan shouldn't just come in and kind of change everything that people were used to and comfortable with. And then lastly for us, with any body of water nowadays, it's the water quality is a critical aspect of that. We continue to work with engineers and work with Alberta Environment and Parks to improve water quality. With this pond itself, while it is natural, And as development has occurred, it is still a stormwater management facility. And so with that, at the end of this project, I hope that we can provide some recommendations and some ideas and identify amenities that one, don't degrade the water quality, and two, is that there's opportunities to obviously improve upon it. We'll go to the next slide, Amanda. So in terms of the process to date, I would say we are still definitely at the early stages of it. Over the last few months, I think the very first part is getting the engagement aspect of it set up properly. Did take some additional time into consideration. How do we interact with the community? How do we present this information online so that it's easy to obtain, that people are able to get it? And like Amanda mentioned earlier, those were some of the reasons in regards to these types of meetings. And for anyone that hasn't visited the Social Pinpoint engagement website, please feel free to. It's done very well, and I would say that it's done very differently than your traditional engagement, where you download a survey and fill it in and send it back. There are other elements about it that are quite unique and I'll say fun. So the very first stage is the background review, and this section of it has been done already. It's about understanding those existing conditions that I mentioned earlier. It's about understanding any regulatory policies and legislation that would impact the use and function of this body of water. And then lastly, it's about, like I was talking about earlier, it's about understanding all of the approved planning, the previous work that has been completed around Dodd's Lake, and then ensuring that whether it's vision consistencies are there. One of the things that I guess it leads into on the second part is the stage that we are on today is what we're calling that first engagement. And I think I'd be cautious in saying that it's the first engagement. As a community, you guys have already done a lot of engagement over the last, I'd say, year, 2 years or so. So by no means would we like to think that this is starting fresh. A lot of the information that we have read, reviewed, and stuff has already been considered. It's things that are going to shape this project as a whole. And I think for that purpose too, we're not necessarily coming back to the community and asking, big questions, what would you like to see, or if you can have anything you want, what would it be? Because we've reviewed that engagement that has happened already, because we've reviewed those that feedback that has been previously provided, the engagement that you guys will see on again, if you haven't visited Social Pinpoint, is a little bit more direct, and it's a little bit more focused and continuation of that previous work. After tonight, the intention is that we take what we hear and we take what we receive as feedback from that engagement session, and really start to develop an amenities list, things that you guys as a community say is important for Dodd's Lake. Two is to prioritize that list to really understand what, if we had to rank or pick 5 or 10 things or whatever the case might be, what would those things look like? And then thirdly is to start understanding within that amenities list, where could these things be located around Dodd's Lake? Following that, the next time we come back to the community is to be able to present some loose concept plans. So again, it will be showing you that amenities list, it will be showing you that priorities, and then on a map, we're then able to show, based on what we heard, based on what those items are, this is where it would be, location wise, this is where it would make sense, this is where it would fit, this is how, certain things are connected to each other. From then on, we will get another set of feedback in terms of what the community's thoughts is about that concept plan. Do you like it? Don't like it? You would like to move this or that. And then from that, we would develop what we would call a preferred concept plan. And so a preferred concept plan is starting to get into that little bit of a detail in terms of really identifying what those specific spaces could look like, feel like, look like. From then, and then just to kind of close it out, once that preferred concept plan has been completed is when we start to do the writing part of it. And so then it will be about writing the policies, the recommendations, and implementation to I guess create that that preferred concept plan, like I mentioned. So that's really kind of the meat and potatoes of it for administration and for council. But 100% it directly reflects that preferred concept plan that the community has been involved with. And then lastly, you know, the hope is by the end of the year or so that we will be coming to council to provide that. And you know, hopefully everything looks good and we get the sign off, and if not, then we work with council and get some of those comments and work towards approval.
Okay, thanks, Gord. We're going to move on, I think, to Gail, and she's going to go over the background information. And just to be sort of clear up front, all of this information and more is available on that Social Pinpoint site. So this is sort of an overview. If you want more information, you can find it there. So I will be quiet, and Gail, you can go ahead.
Hi again, everybody. So as Gord has touched on, we have done extensive review of available information to become more familiar with past development discussions and research, as well as what the existing conditions are of Dodd's Lake and the surrounding area. Documents such as the Recreation, Leisure, and Cultural Services Amenities Plan, the Trails Master Plan, Hazelwood Estates Outline Plan, and the Dodd's Lake Outline Plan are some of the examples that have provided relevant information to establish a baseline for potential recreational uses and enhancement opportunities.
Can't see her.
Area. Sorry?
We can't see you.
You can't see me?
No.
Okay. Can anybody else? Is anyone else having video problem for me?
I can see you.
Can see you.
I cannot see, but that's all right. I can hear.
Okay.
My video is showing as on. I'm going to turn it off and then turn it back on. Did that change anything?
No, all I can see is Amanda HW, and that's all I can see.
Interesting.
Okay, well, we might have to use our imaginations for this one, because I can see you, Gail, so I'm not sure. There's a disconnect somewhere there.
Okay, my apologies for that if there is a disconnect. I don't know what other settings to try because it looks to be working from my camera. The sound is okay for people though? Okay, thanks,
Yeah.
Amanda. So yes, these were used just to give us, these are a sample of some of the documents we reviewed to give us a clear understanding of the Dodd's Lake area. We've also had numerous discussions with environmental experts to be clear on potential uses and limitations within the water body. So what we've found out is that Dodd's Lake is a naturally occurring water body with an average depth over 2 meters, defining it as a lake. The town of Innisfail uses the lake for stormwater management purposes, and the community makes use of the lake for a variety of recreational purposes on the water and within the surrounding public lands. The water body is Crown owned, meaning the province owns the water up to the natural high water line, and as a navigable waterway, all movements on the water are federally regulated by Transport Canada. A portion of the land surrounding the lake is privately owned, and while the town owns land abutting the shoreline, providing public access to the lake in a few areas. The town also has the authority to require environmental reserve land dedication along the shoreline at the time of subdivision for future development. You can move to the next slide, Amanda. So in review of these existing documents, studies, and conditions, we created an opportunity and constraints map. This identifies potential areas of development or enhancement, as well as areas with limited access and therefore limited development opportunity. So as Gord had touched on earlier in the planning considerations, we know that all planning and development needs to be respectful of the existing land ownership abutting the shoreline of Dodd's Lake and consider all environmental regulations as well as existing shoreline, water, and wildlife habitats. So what we know is that there are 3 stormwater inlets entering at the south, southeast, and north ends, and there is an outlet at the north side of Dodd's Lake. There is potential to create a forebay at the southeast inlet area if it's required to enhance water quality and better manage storm contribution to this facility. We've also identified 3 potential community park areas. These are highlighted by a red asterisk on the plan in the north, south, and east sides of the lake. These all have opportunity for good public access. We have also identified a potential neighborhood park space at the southeast side of the lake that has poor public access, but creates an opportunity for local foot or bike accessibility, creating kind of a private node for local residents. There is a need for improved connectivity by trail development within the Dodd's Lake area. Though there is limited opportunity to create a looping trail around the lake, as we've previously discussed, connectivity can be created within the development areas that we've highlighted, and a larger connection can be established by adding roadside trails that reach each destination. Blue lines on this map indicate existing trails or boardwalk, while the orange lines represent future connection opportunities. The existing park space boat launch area at the south side of the lake is a high-use site serving multiple recreation uses right now. The area serves as the only formal parking and gathering space of Dodd's Lake at this time. Currently, there's limited parking, and this should be improved in order to create that community park setting that the town is interested in. So Amanda, you can move to the next slide, please. So as we reviewed the background information, we found there are 5 key ideas that were brought up through past engagements with the town. During the background review process, we looked into each one with the town to gather more information so it would be readily available and for review and consideration during this engagement process. The looping shoreline trail was brought up during the Trails Master Plan process, and as previously mentioned, has limitations based on existing land ownership and shoreline conditions. Land surrounding Dodd's Lake was not initially planned to accommodate a shoreline trail, and the town has limited ownership of abutting Dodd's Lake. It is also very important to maintain privacy to existing residents, discourage trespassing, and promote safety for users. And this goes back to 2 slides ago where I mentioned the potential for smaller connected trails within the development areas, the 3 development areas. Another one was boating, which includes motorized and non-motorized boats. And this was discussed extensively in preparation for the public engagement. We learned through our research that the town does not have the authority to regulate boating, as it is federally regulated through Transport Canada. The town does, however, own land that provides access to the lake via boat launch and dock, which in turn encourages a variety of boating activities. And the important factor there again is safety, to make sure that the boats of motorized or non-motorized are using the facility in a respectful and safe manner. The third item that came up frequently was fish stocking, and it has been discussed numerous times over the past years. Dodd's Lake was reviewed by the Alberta Conservation Association in 2015 to determine its potential for inclusion in the Alberta Provincial Stocking Program. At that time, it was determined to be unsuitable due to shallow water depths and low dissolved oxygen levels. Other features that were talked about for the lake was swimming, and the current water quality for Dodd's Lake is not monitored and therefore may contain biological, chemical, or physical hazards. Regular water monitoring would need to occur in order to promote swimming and know what the water quality is to ensure safe health standards are met. And that takes us into the potential for winter use of going onto the ice. With consideration to the function as the facility functioning as a stormwater management pond, this brings in all kinds of silts and sediments. Ice thickness may vary throughout the lake and throughout the winter season. To encourage ice usage would require ongoing monitoring of thicknesses to ensure user safety as well. So as Amanda stated, just before I came into this, there's a lot more detailed information on each of these items on the public engagement website. So this was just a brief summary of what we found and some of the documents that we've referred to. So Amanda, I'll pass that back to you.
Okay, thanks, Gail. I'm just going to go over quickly the social engagement or the public engagement website that we've been referring to. Hopefully, or almost exclusively, I would guess that is where you logged on to this meeting. But I know that it wasn't totally clear that there's a bunch of other additional information on the website. So I'll go over that now. As you're aware, we've been using this website to share background information about the project as well as gather input. So all the things that Gord went over and Gail went over are on that website, and they have their own pages for some of those past ideas. There's some frequently asked questions on there that we may update after this meeting if we hear that there's a specific question that we should post on there so that everyone has the answer to. We'll do that. And then we'll be updating that website as well once the survey is closing and moving forward into that second stage of engagement. We're going to be trying to use this social pinpoint throughout the life of the project. So as I said, the site is called Social Pinpoint, and it's a new platform. It has a variety of engagement tools that I hope many of you have had the chance to try. What's shown on the screen right now is a snapshot of the ideas wall from the website. And this is essentially a virtual sticky note area where you can share your thoughts, comments, concerns, or vision for the Dodds Lake area, and others can read those, and they can even agree with them with a thumbs up or disagree with a thumbs down. This tool is one of the reasons we were excited to launch this specific platform for the project, because it's kind of a fun way that participants can share their ideas and interact with each other's comments rather than just submitting a survey and, you know, not being able to have that bit of a discussion and hear what their neighbors are saying. So hopefully we'll get a few more comments in the next couple of weeks that it will be open. So if you haven't had a chance to submit any comments yet, please do so, or you can just go on there and read what other people are saying. Like, dislike, whatever you choose. Here is an engagement snapshot from yesterday. I know these numbers have gone up a little bit today, but we have had the engagement website up for just about 2 weeks. And so far we've had a lot of participation. As of yesterday, we had 79 surveys. I think that's at 72, or sorry, 69 surveys. I think that's at 72 today. We have 20 comments on that idea wall, and we've received several email submissions. It was 2 yesterday, but we've had more today. Having read most of the comments that we've received so far, there are a couple of themes that are starting to emerge. So I'll just talk about those a little bit. These in no way are what we're taking from the whole thing because we're only about halfway through, but I thought I'd share with you what we're hearing so far. So generally folks are saying that they like Dodd's Lake just the way it is now. And they're talking about how it has relatively limited use, and it's kind of quiet, and there are various types of boats using the lake, and folks quite like that, and they like seeing the different wildlife that is present. As shown in the survey, there are a bunch of different questions in there about land-based activities, water-based activities, events, those types of things. And there right now seems to be a support for a few different types of low intensity amenities, such as picnic tables, viewing points, walking trails, that sort of thing. So that's sort of right in line with the idea that people like it the way it is, but maybe it needs a little sprucing up, in alignment with the concerns that the town had heard in the past regarding littering. That was a concern brought up in the past by nearby residents. And so there also was a desire shown in the survey to see some more of the supportive amenity uses for the area, such as trash bins, dog waste bags, and then regarding the increased usage potentially in the future, there's some concerns that have come up about traffic calming, and there has been an expression to see some washrooms. So again, just to be clear, this is just a high level overview of what we're hearing on the site so far. And all of the different engagement tools on that website are going to remain open until Friday, August 21st. And then at which time we will close them and do a more thorough review of all the feedback that we've gathered. So definitely tonight is not the only chance that you have to share your ideas. We definitely encourage you to go onto the website and encourage your neighbors or friends, family members who didn't participate tonight to visit the website, read some of that background information, watch tonight's presentation, which will be posted on there, complete the survey, share some ideas on the sticky wall, and there's still 2 weeks to participate in this stage of the engagement prior to that concept plan even being created. So we'll continue to post updates to the site as they're available. Okay, I'll just go quickly through the next steps. And as far as those go, engagement for this stage of the project, like I said, is going to be open until August 21st. So if you know people who've been away on holiday, encourage them to participate in this. That would be much appreciated. We'll also be posting a recording of this meeting onto the site, so they'll be able to hear everything we talked about tonight, including the question and answer portion, if that suits them. Once we close the engagement, we're going to spend time reviewing everything we heard and then move into the conceptual planning for the Dodd's Lake area. And once the conceptual plan is completed, we'll be coming back to you to go over what is proposed. We're going to be using that same online engagement website. Very likely, it's possible that we may meet in person. It's sort of COVID will dictate, but if this works, we're going to try and stick to this, and we'll present that conceptual plan for your review. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the question portion. I'm going to go over again how that question portion is going to work. So as I mentioned during the beginning of the meeting, which I know there's been quite a few people who have joined us since that time, so they missed some of that. Everyone in the meeting is muted right now, and we'd sort of like to keep that the way it is and keep things fairly organized. So there's two ways that you'll be able to ask a question. First way is to click the raise your hand button at the bottom of the screen there. That's only available, I believe, if you're on a desktop computer. So once you raise your hand, then that flags to me that you've raised your hand, and I'll be able to say, Jordan, go ahead, and you'll be able to unmute and ask that question, and I'll try and direct your question to the person who would be best suited to answer it. So we'll just have to be a little bit patient as people prepare their microphones and answer those. The second way is to click on the little messages box at the bottom of your screen to open the chat area of the meeting. And once you do that, you'll be able to type a question into the chat. I will read it aloud, and then one of our presenters will answer that for you. We've also had some pre-submitted questions that I'll read, and we will answer those. And if there are questions that we don't have answers to right now, I will ask that you email us at doddslakefeedback@stantec.com, which is on that website where you logged in. And if you could email us your question, or just say, hey, I asked that question about, I'm looking at a picture of a dog right now. I asked that question about a dog. Could you get back to me at this email address or phone number? And then we'll be able to do so. There also may be things that are very specific to your property. If you would like to talk about those offline and not during the meeting, we can do that as well. So it's up to you. So we will now jump into the questions. I'm going to read the pre-submitted questions first, and then we will dive into the other ones. So the first question that I'm going to read is just a portion of the email I'm going to read. It read, Dodd's Lake is set out as a recreational area. However, there is no traffic calming. Since changing the 56th Street Road from Lakewood Drive to 54th Street, the amount of traffic has increased substantially. And although the speed limit is posted, the traffic is often exceeding the speed limit. The email went on, but the question was essentially, are there any plans for traffic calming in this area? So I'm going to ask Megan if she can talk a little bit about that for us.
You bet. So I guess 56th Street itself isn't specifically part of the scope of this plan, but as we've talked about, parking at the boat launch, potential pedestrian connectivity improvements, those would include parts of 56th Street. So that's certainly some of the sort of offsite impacts that this plan could have, and that those concerns could be looked at sort of outside of the project as well. That isn't the first time that we've had comments about speed along 56th Street, so that's not a surprising comment to come up.
Okay, thank you. The next series of questions that we have are about trails along the lake. So I will read a couple of them because I know that Megan and I have gone over these and that she'd like to answer them as a set. So I'll read a couple of them together and then she'll speak to these. So question number one is, how many people are actually using the trail system around Napoleon Lake? Next question is, how will the town ensure that the trail system does not become accessed for theft and break-ins for those properties that abut the trail? Does the town contemplate the use of security cameras? The next question is pardon me. The next question is, what mitigation steps will be taken to ensure there is no erosion of existing properties due to the excavations required for the new trail? What compensation will be provided for those property owners who are expected to lose part of their property due to the trail system? And how will the town mitigate the effects of the new trail system on the existing fox dens around the lake? So Megan, if you could speak to those, and if I feel that you've missed part of the question, I'll maybe mention it right after.
You bet. So I think Gail and Gord have both alluded through the background information that we talked about tonight, about even before starting this plan, recognizing that there are definitely limitations, and that likely a shoreline looping trail around Dodd's Lake, similar to what we have at Napoleon Lake, isn't a feasible option here. We have property owners on all sides of the lake, essentially, that are that own land right up to or including the shore, and that it's not necessarily reasonable to think that they should give up the privacy and the security that they've become used to. Gail mentioned some potential options for how we can improve how we connect pedestrian walkways around the area, utilizing potentially existing sidewalks, improving sidewalks along various streets, upgrading the boardwalk, those types of things. But I believe through the trail master plan and coming into this plan that the reality that a shoreline trail could be built all the way around the perimeter of Dodd's Lake isn't really a feasible option. I think there was one other part of question about the usage of the Napoleon Lake Trail. I don't necessarily have stats on that. But I think if the question was sort of implying, why do we need another lake with a shoreline loop? Yeah, this lake will definitely have to have a different approach in terms of how that trail can connect people all the way around.
Okay, great. There is one portion that wasn't mentioned, and that was how the town could mitigate the effects of a new trail, regardless of its location, on existing fox dens.
So I guess that would have to be part of any kind of specific project if there was going to be a linkage made in terms of environmental requirements and identifying those locations. But that would have to be undertaken as part of an actual construction, as far as I would think, unless you have some other insights, Amanda.
I think we'll, for tonight, maybe just capture that that's a concern, and we'll have to take that forward for how we consider that in the future. The next question that we had written in was, how does the town expect to protect the existing wildfowl by enforcing the 100-meter offshore limit for power boats? It is not enforced now.
It is a good question. It is difficult for the town to enforce on the water. But I think we're hoping that this plan will help us lay out some new guidelines, new even bylaws for how we can educate and ensure that we are protecting all the wildlife on and surrounding the lake.
Okay, great. And just for folks who joined us a little bit later, because I saw there were a couple, we did discuss how boating is federally regulated, and the town actually does not have jurisdiction over boating. So that's why Megan's saying it's tricky in that way. Okay, I think that, let me just scroll. Those were the questions that we had written in. So we're going to move on to the hands up area. So we've got two people with their hands up, and the first one at my list is Hal Willis. So if you would like, Hal, please unmute yourself. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. I wondered if you could go back to that slide that has got all the drawings on it. Shows the east end of the lake. Very colorful slide, lots of stuff. There we go. Okay, so I'm not sure that the little crescent there is where I live, and then the arrow is the pathway going down. And you're showing sort of an extension or a continuation of that little green area that's down on the very east end of the lake now, which is an area that rarely gets used. But you're wanting to extend it back up towards that pathway that goes out of our subdivision. Now, there are two lots that aren't quite being recognized there, kind of in that gray area. That's it. That would have concerns certainly about trails behind their house. And not only that, the only way that you will be able to put a trail there is certainly to hang it on posts. And when you do that, you're going through the natural area where nesting and so on takes place. And that all was much a major issue from the environmental viewpoint when we did our development here, that what was to be determined as the lake shore and lake bed was not to be touched. And so I don't know how there would be agreement with Alberta Environment and others that one could put a pathway right through the middle of that nesting area and around, and not create a problem for the wildlife that does exist there now.
I'm gonna hand that over to Gord, I think. Gord, do you want to speak to that?
For sure. Hal, thank you for that. I think first thing is just to clarify the purpose of this map. Really, this map was first and foremost trying to identify things that exist. And I'm sorry, just for my own correction, this is the one to the southeast.
Yep, where you got the cursor there now, moving it around. Yep.
I'm sorry, just give me one more minute. All right, Amanda, let's see your mouse. Yeah, perfect. And so by no means is this figure supposed to represent where that connection happens or where or that it exists already. All this really shows us is that as part of that planning and as part of that original subdivision, that there was a sliver of space here left for it. That was supposed to be some sort of a connection. And so, you know, on this figure, you will notice that in things that are in yellow are existing trail connections. Things that are in blue are you know, things that could happen. And that's where one of those areas does not identify it as a blue connection or that there would be direct access, you know, in and around the lake. So, and then also to Megan's point that she talked about, you know, these are one of those specific areas where we 100% recognize that putting a trail down there is not feasible or realistic. And for that reason alone, as we continue on with this project, it is the reason why, you know, a continuous looping trail is probably not feasible or possible.
Okay, so really the crosshatch area that's shown there is simply showing what is sort of available as town property right now. That's all you're showing.
Yeah, it's definitely shown in the terms that it's a little bit underutilized. And I think to even further that subject, not just the connection that you've mentioned, but you see all those little red X's kind of surrounding that area. These are areas too that could have potential access to the lake, but they're not good public access. You know, they're a PUL, they're a lane, they're a very small right of way that was left over for whatever reason. And so, you know, definitely by no means do they make for a strong, good pedestrian connectivity, even though it is there. And like Gail mentioned earlier, I think this area that's crosshatched that we've identified as underutilized, I think these are one of those areas that has a great potential for the people that live around it, whether it's to provide those little small community amenities or to provide, you know, like Amanda mentioned, a little bit of sprucing up. But this is one of those areas that we don't necessarily see having a very strong kind of a regional use or amenity based use that's intended to bring a lot of people into it.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Hal. I'm going to take your, okay, your hand is down. Chuck, I had seen once in a while that your hand was up. Did you want to ask a question next?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I have a couple of observations. First of all, Dodd's Lake has not always been Dodd's Lake. At one stage, it was a hayfield. At another stage, it was a racetrack. It is actually rather an artificial lake in many ways. And if it wasn't for the weir at the north end of it, it wouldn't exist at all. So, you know, it is what it is, and we're all happy about it. I mean, I'm one of the property owners that lives next to it. So, but it you know, we have to look at it historically. It is primarily a stormwater storage area, and that's going to be a big issue as far as the quality of water is concerned. We have friends who are water skiers, and they wear wetsuits because of this, because of the bloodsuckers and that kind of thing in the lake. So it's something we're going to have to be aware of. I was a little perturbed, and I'm not particularly surprised about the question about enforcing the 100-meter offshore thing for the wildfowl. We lived here for 12 years, and when we came here, we had 9 sets of nesting geese. Now we have none. And part of the reason for that is we see people with jet boats, particularly the jet boats, come in, and they just terrorize the wildfowl, the waterfowl. So I know you can't do anything about that, but we've called the RCMP and tried to get them to do something, and they just shrug their shoulders and say, we don't have the time, it's not our problem, blah, 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 blah. So that's the way it is. The final thing that I would like to address is this business about the fact that there is no capability for fish. Right now, we have 5 cormorants and 24 white pelicans on the lake eating fish. We don't know where those fish came from. We think they were stocked. They will probably die in the wintertime. I agree with what was said about the fact that the lake goes anaerobic in the wintertime. But it's really quite a bit of a difference. Certainly you couldn't put rainbow trout in, but I'm not sure what these fish are, but the cormorants seem to like them. So perhaps that could continue on as a way of attracting waterfowl to the area, just something to be aware of. And finally, this social pinpoint website I didn't know about, and I'm glad to hear about it. And the only thing I'd say is you've got 72 responses out of 7,000 people. So I think we need to be able to get this to be more public. Here is an issue. I'm a computer nerd. I'm really comfortable with all of this. I do a lot of this stuff. But we've got a whole pile of the population, probably 40 to 50% of the population, that doesn't know how to do this digital stuff. How are you going to reach them? How are you going to have a chance to give them input into this process? Because they may want to be heard. That's it, and I'll shut up now.
No, thank you for all those, Chuck. And we're going to have to take some of those back and talk about them internally for how we can do some of that. Those things, specifically the social pinpoint. I see Lori waving at me. I don't know that just to finish up, Chuck, I don't know that there were any specific questions that you asked there that you wanted answered. Okay, very good. I have taken notes on those though. And Lori, we're going to go over to you if you're ready. You are on mute. I'll ask you to unmute. I'm sorry, Lori, you're still on mute. I don't want to have you have to repeat everything.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, very good, thank you.
Okay, sorry. Everybody was very well spoken and I understand their concerns. I have 2 or 3 concerns. John, my husband, was in on the initial development plan years ago, and I know it quite well, but not as good as John. He worked for the engineers at the time. Anyway, my first question is all the social stuff and the newspaper. I moved away for a year. We never got any notice of this at all. And we're one of the major portions of the lakefront. And my mom is 90. She can't read her emails and she's still in Sturgeon County. So I'd like to know how we get on the mailing list because there's a lot of property there. So I don't know if I can email somebody at the town. Like nobody, I don't know. I just feel that nobody sends a letter anymore because she would have got it. Her mail was forwarded to Sturgeon County. So having said that, I'll move on to the next subject is when we own the quarter section there and we owned the alpacas there for many years. I always felt that that was a place that the animals could go, almost like a sanctuary, like the foxes went, the badgers went, all the animals, the deer are there now that we haven't got the alpacas. So it's almost like a safe sanctuary for them. And I'd like to see that was assisted. That was put in my dad's plan with all the green space. Also at the weir at the north end, we called it a weir that allows water to come in and out when the rainfall is bigger and it's been raining. The lake is low and the reeds are almost out to the middle of the lake. Nobody cleans it up. The town doesn't come clean it up. Chuck and John, they mow the lawn out the back. There's trees dying out back that the town won't even come and cut down. So where are we at with that? And at the weir, my dad's plan was to put in 2 more lakes for the stormwater. And the original vision was that you could kayak down there. you know, almost like a park, because it's beautiful down there. There's a creek down there, all that kind of visual, beautiful nature stuff. And
We gave up more green space than any other developer, from what we were told, to alleviate the overflow of Dodd's Lake, because the dike and the creek is across our quarter section. And rather than flooding out neighbors' fields or crops, he put in a design plan to create a couple more lakes to possibly clean up the water, as well, filtrate, as well as just create more diversity for the wildlife, as Chuck has mentioned, as well as a lot of other people. And that's our concern. And it just seems like that, you know, we're in negotiations here. And I don't think it's worthy of that. We've given up the land, and yes, there's, you know, so many houses we could build more, but at what cost? We still want the wildlife to survive, our neighbors to survive, as well as, you know, as well as everybody else. So if you're considering a roundabout trail, a paved trail, you better think about the other 10 kilometers you're going to have to do around these future lakes to connect to where we're at right now. So have you considered that in any effect? Because, you know, that's not cheap.
no. So anyway, let's kind of get over it. I think the final questions are the three. Why weren't we mailed a letter? Because I've just moved back, so
Really?
I had no clue except for Chuck coming over. Why was my mother not notified? And if she was, she's 90 and she wouldn't know any better. Yeah, I'm upset about that. And I'm upset about my dad's 3 lakes, or having this water storm drainage, the weir taken out, which would create 2 more lakes that people could kayak. And I do have a fourth thing to mention about the motorboats. It either has to be wildlife or a bird sanctuary with kayaks, and no motorboats, because I gave up my kayak because of all the motorboats, because they just do a wake and think it was really funny. And I'm not getting any younger, and I'd have to come in. And then I would phone the cops, and yeah, nothing would happen. So, you know, there's different things going on than just let's let everybody have fun and play. There's some dangerous things going on with the motorboats on the lake. And I'm done.
Okay, thanks, Lori. I've pulled out a couple of questions that hopefully we'll be able to answer. I'll speak to the engagement notification. We did go through a process to decide if we wanted to send out letters or not to nearby property owners. We opted, frankly, to not do that. So it's not as though you didn't get a letter. Well, it is that you didn't get a letter because there wasn't one. So I'll say that right.
That's
right
pretty lame.
there was one. I'm hearing for sure that
Sorry, don't mean to be rude.
Pardon me?
I don't mean to be rude, but I wasn't even living here at the time all this went on. So I just found out, so I thought I would put in my 2 cents worth.
No, absolutely. And I'm glad that you did. And we've heard that, you know, earlier tonight, we also heard that social pinpoint probably isn't working for everyone. And we are trying to sort this out. We do still have several weeks left, and there's still time to make changes. So we'll take that back and talk about it internally. One of the reasons that we thought we didn't want to send out a letter to property owners was because this was sort of a community-wide visioning session, and also because nothing was actually being proposed. we're just kind of talking about it and initial stages. So, you know, we can take that as a misstep for sure, and that's what we're hearing right now, and I can accept that absolutely, and we'll try and change that for as we move forward for sure, and we'll try and get in contact with everyone so that they can get engaged within the next couple of weeks, and then also moving forward. So to summarize that, you didn't get a letter because there wasn't one, you didn't miss out, and point taken, and moving forward on that one, no problem. The other thing that you had mentioned was, of course, like the development plan and how that has shifted into what has been shown now. I'm not sure. I feel like Gordon disappeared. Maybe his camera is gone. I don't recall those two lakes. So Gord, are you available to speak to that development plan at all, or Megan, and how that has... Okay, great.
Okay.
There's no video?
I can't see you, but I can hear you, so...
All right, I'm sorry. I think...
Oh, I can see you now.
Oh, perfect. I think this question from Lori and John may need a further discussion, because there might be something that I'm not aware of, and maybe Megan can help with it. My understanding of it is that there is a north area structure plan that really identifies the growth and direction of many of these lands. I guess, you know, cut Dodd's Lake in half and north of that. So it does identify quite a few areas. Within that plan, it starts to set some of the direction of where those major natural area spaces are, where some of the major road connections are. So that's kind of document one, I guess, of the lands that you guys are speaking about. Then to further the details of that, there is a plan, an approved plan, Dodd's Lake Outline Plan from September 2011, that really then starts to set the details of what this development could and would look like when built out. So an ultimate build out scenario. Our understanding of it right now is that the land ownership is obviously still with you guys, actually all the way up to the bed and shore boundary line, and that no development has happened here. No lands have transferred or anything to a municipal level. Ultimately, as you guys develop with it, it will require additional detailed design based on the stages, or based on the way that, you know, however you build it out. It may require additional studies, things like biophysical studies or wetland assessments or stormwater, whatever has not been completed, or I guess whatever the town will deem necessary at that point in time of development. And I guess for myself, the confusion that I'm not really understanding is, you guys have been approved to build out this development as it's shown. I can see the significant open spaces. I can see the two small lakes along the west boundary. So I'm not really, I guess, maybe there's a disconnect where I'm not understanding where you feel that has been changed, or for whatever reason that it may not build out that way.
I guess it wasn't mentioned or through the talks tonight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100% we recognize that there is an approved plan, and, you know, on one perspective, the existing development is very limiting because it's built there already, there's boundaries set. But at the same time, an outline plan also holds the same level of weight in that perspective, is that it's an approved plan. And so, you know, it's not like we can come in here and say, why don't you get rid of these lots, or can you move some stuff around? We can't do that, and the municipality can't do that. What you guys have shown in the plan already has been approved, and if you want to build it out as is, then 100% regulatory, you have been approved to do so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Amanda, just to kind of maybe touch on that second question. And again, Lori and Chuck, some of your guys' questions kind of went hand in hand. I think the second discussion is in regards to the boating itself. 100%, you know, we understand that, we see that, and I think where that becomes very challenging on this project is that like we mentioned, it is federally, this is a recreational body of water which allows for boating. And with this situation specifically, the boat launch itself further defines that boats can be on it. Where I think for the town itself, it becomes very challenging is that enforcement side of it. Who enforces it? How much is it enforced? How regularly is enforced? Any of those matters.
If people are in danger by the motorboats, then something has to be done.
Mm-hmm. And so
Right.
with that is really part of this project and part of that discussion that we bring back to administration and then further to council is that, in a situation like this where the boat launch is already present, there's a historic use of it. But I 100% with Chuck and Lori is that how is that enforced moving forward? So, it's easy to say, let's just take it away. But at the same time, it's also been there for a long time. So it's also a discussion about how does it get enforced? What are those policies in place to ensure safety and fairness, I guess, to the community as a whole?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no, understood. But it still has to be enforced somehow by signs or, now they have to have their boating license. Like, how is that checked? How is that regulated? Somebody has to do that because you can't drive a boat without a license now.
Yeah, one thing that wasn't presented today, and Amanda, I'm not sure if those are on the website, but through this exercise, we did a little, I guess, a review of it, and that review kind of starts to identify based on the size of the lake, the depth of the lake, how many boats can be on there at different times, or what are the different scenarios, right? How many boats, how many kayaks, how many paddlers, and I think based on the size of the lake itself, there are limiting numbers to that. And so
Well,
that really...
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but 3 or 4 boats on that lake and they all turn a corner, the lake's going to be empty this year. So,
Yeah.
That's challenging too.
Invariably, something has to be done because there's boats out there while we have paddle boarders and everything else, and nobody, I watch them going around the lake, and it's beautiful. First thing in the morning or late at night, but again,
You never know when
they're
to go.
terrified. The minute the boat comes out, man, let's get out of here.
So I think that boat comments are definitely noticed or noted, and definitely, a critical aspect in terms of what Dodd's Lake in the future looks like, and some of those decisions that or recommendations and ideas that come from this final report.
The lake is too small, and just an added comment. We have low rental housing beside us. There's 3 or 4 duplexes. And they go out on the lake in the winter and they play hockey with their hockey net. And there's got to be like 12 hockey nets that they never picked up. So beware of boating because it's just around the corner. They could catch on them, and that's a hazard too. There's so much littering, and people
It's
don't.
abuse.
It's abuse, and I'm just mainly worried about that as well. We've seen some of the neighbors with dogs and throwing the garbage bags with their poop in it. And the bylaw comes by and says, well, if you don't take a picture, then I can't talk to them. So yeah, where does it end? It's a beautiful lake, yes, as long as people aren't littering. Anyway, I'll stop at that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lori. Yeah, so to that point, there is more information about boating, as you said, on the website, and this is exactly the conversations that we're hoping to have through this process, because we, like Gord mentioned, we were holding back starting engagement for this project until we got a really good understanding of those regulations through the background review, and really so we all could understand what exactly is the town's authority level, what is their role, what can be done, what can't be done, and look at all of those uses, like you said, with going onto the ice in the winter, and then there's potentially hockey nets that are going into the water, and like we said, with the water quality, well, if a potential thing that someone were to say, oh, we really want to see a beach somewhere, can we reasonably think that swimming is safe? And we wanted to really investigate all of those things in advance to make sure that we had that base level of information so we could share that with everyone, and so that everyone was starting with a good understanding of what sort of the opportunities and constraints here are, as you well all know, because you live so close, but not everyone, you know, is coming with that level of information. So we wanted to make sure that we were creating something that was quite realistic. And similarly with this map that's still on the screen, you know, those private property areas and things like Gord was mentioning, yes, maybe there is an access to the lake, but let's think reasonably, where would a person park? Well, you don't really want them parking in front of your house and walking beside your place. And, you know, what can we reasonably think is within the future for Dodd's Lake, and what, you know, is maybe a good idea, but it's not great in practicality. No one will really want that. So we wanted to make sure that we had all those conversations in advance, and hopefully through this presentation tonight and these discussions, that was made clear to everyone that we have heard you in the past. The town has definitely heard your concerns in the past, and is taking all that information very seriously to move it forward, while still being open-minded and, you know, trying to look for what the future of this could be to make it great, a little bit more enhanced for everyone.
Yeah, so thank you for your patience. Like it's yeah, I've you've answered a lot of my questions. So, and I wanted to know, is Craig Teal still with the town, or I got a letter from him?
He's not still with the town. He's with PCPS, again, out of Red Deer, and they're working on an update to that north area structure plan. So I believe that's the contact that was made from Craig to you. And I'll just follow up, Lori, on a couple of your other comments about the trees behind the house and the maintenance of the outlet and stuff, that I can follow up with our operations team on some of those comments as well.
Okay, thank you, Megan.
Yep.
All right, I do not see any hands raised or comments in the chat, so I will deduce, I guess, that everyone is feeling okay with the conversations that we've had. If you have more questions, please email us at doddslakefeedback@stantec.com, which is available on that website where you logged into the meeting. Also, like we mentioned, there's still 2 weeks left, and we're really hoping to extend the stretch and reach of our engagement. So we will be looking and talking with the town as to how we can extend that reach in a little bit more old-fashioned type of way, less digital. But please, if you know other people, send them the information. We can also maybe talk with the town about how we can, you know, maybe we'll print out some paper surveys and have them available at the town office or something as well. Chuck, I see your hand is up, so we'll swing it over to you.
Just very briefly, thank you for a very well-organized and very objective presentation. Good for you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
I think just one additional discussion, and again, Chuck, this goes to your question earlier about that fish stocking. I think we just want to point out that that's only one entity that stocks ponds that has, you know, based on their criteria is not fitting of it. I believe that in Alberta there are 2 entities that do typically stock ponds, but also recognizing that there are other programs out there with different educational schools that actually have programs like this such. So I think just to clarify that, you know, 100%, you know, agree with you. The fish are eating something, so there's something in there. And one body specifically has said that right now it doesn't fit their criteria. They also have provided some recommendations and ideas in terms of how to get it to that level, or what actions may need to be taken. But I think the key message there is that there are other opportunities, other additional you know, recommendations, I guess, that could allow for a stocked pond, just not from the specific party.
Thank you for that.
Okay, I see Gail has her hand up. Gail?
Hi, guys. So I just want to add to what Gord just said. So I just pulled up some information on the Dodd's Lake Fish Survey. And Chuck, just to comment to you, because we did have other feedback that there are fish in the lake, and they're particularly seen at the the inlet area on the southeast end. So that study from 2015 did actually show that there were fathead minnows and brook stickleback. Now, I'm not a fish expert. I know the minnows would be small. I don't know what a brook stickleback looks like, and I don't know if they survive through winter or anything of that nature. But the fish stocking through this Alberta Conservation Association basically looked at stocking for the trout and what their requirements are, like Gord just alluded to. But I would say, yes, you're correct. I know that pelicans have been reported on the lake, and those are the two types of fish that in 2015 were reported.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, hearing no other comments, unless anyone has anything else that they're interested in chatting about. We're now at 7:30, so pending seeing a raise of hands, we will call this to an end, and thank you all so much for your time. Spending 2 hours with us tonight, or however long, an hour and a half with us tonight. Hopefully we'll see your comments more on the website, but certainly we have them all copied down from tonight as well. Again, please get in contact with us or with Megan at the town if you have any questions or concerns that you might think of coming up. And then if not, we will see you all for phase 2 of the engagement process. And I see some people waving, so I will do the same.
Thank
Please
you,
have a good
everyone.
night.
Bye.
And
Bye. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
have a good night. Thanks for coming.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Bye.